Welcome to our study of Judges. Welcome to everybody who's here. Welcome to all of you who are watching online. We are grateful for your attendance with us. We are looking tonight at a fellow by the name of Gideon, also known as Jerubbaal, so named by his father. And that's the first blank we'll fill in on this worksheet. Up at the top, it says, from Deborah to Gideon. Or should I say, there's nothing there?
Just pieces of paper and a little package that said Fisherman's Friend, but they're not throat like the throat lozenges are like court things.
Okay, it's all right. I'll do without them.
I'll get you smarter.
Where were we? Jerubbaal, which means, anybody check out that passage, that verse that's listed there? Let Baal contend with. It's all right. We're going to come to it, Lord willing. If the Lord doesn't come before we get through this lesson, we'll come to it before we're done. But he's got two names. Just wanted you to know that. How often do we come across somebody in the Bible that's got two names? Well, quite often. Peter, also known as Cephas, also known as Simon. So three names for the same guy. And Moses' father is Jethro, but he's also Reuel. Yeah, it's hard to remember all these names, but a lot of folks in the Bible have different names. Nothing unusual about that. So, 531 tells us, following Deborah's judgeship, the land had rest for 40 years. Now, back 40 years from today, when would that be? What? Before you were born. 24 would be 14, 2004, 94, 84. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. 84. Who was not even born in 1984? I mean, there's a lot of you here that you weren't even thought of. So 40 years is a good bit of time. And historically, we look back, well, 40 years, that's nothing. Well, 40 years was something to them. That was a long time. So think about that while we look at chapter 6 and verses 1 through 24. We're not going to read all of that, but let's read 1 through 10. So if somebody would get chapter 6 of Judges 1 through 5, all right, Carrie's got that, and then 6 through 10. Let's read that and get started, and then we'll finish the rest of it. All right, Jamie, here we go.
Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hands of Midian 7 years. The power of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of Midian, the sons of Israel made for themselves the dens which were in the mountains and the caves and the strongholds. For it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites would come up with the Amalekites and the sons of the east and go against them. So they would camp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, as well as no sheep, ox, or donkey. For they would come up with their livestock in their tents. They would come in like locusts for number. Both they and their camels were innumerable, and they came into the land to devastate it.
Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all of your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites and those lands whom you live, but you have not listened to me."
Very good. Thank you both. Number one, following 40 years of rest after Deborah's judgeship, Israel did what was blank. Oh, thank you. Blank in the blank of the Lord. Evil in the sight of the Lord. Evil, we understand. I wanted to put a blank in there for sight, reminding us of our study in the Revelation. What did Jesus write to every church at the beginning of those letters? I know I know what's going on there. I know your works, I know your trials, I know your tribulations. Jesus says, I know. So we're talking about things done in the sight of the Lord, and he knew what was going on with Israel during the days of the judges, and they did evil in his sight. So, second line of number 1. So he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. I'll give you a minute to write that out, spell that out. Who were allied with the Amalekites. Midianites and the Amalekites, as well as the sons of the east, is what it says in the text. The text says they were like blank for number. Like what? Locusts. And these people knew what a plague of locusts were. It was like a cloud coming in. And what did locusts do? But they ate every green thing they landed on. And that's essentially what the Midianites and the Amalekites and the sons of the east are doing to Israel. They were like locusts for number, and they would destroy the blank. And the word I would put there would be crops. Every crop they had, whatever it was, they would destroy it and take or destroy all of the blank animals or livestock. As far as, and I wanted to put this in there, did you catch it in the text? As far as Gaza. Have you heard anything about Gaza in the news recently? Just a little bit. So, yeah, we're talking and where Gideon is, if you look at a map of Israel and you go straight up and you find a point between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, and then you go to the west from the Jordan River, it's about right in the middle right there. That's where he is. And Gaza is way south and west, down south and on the coast. So these guys were like grasshoppers or like locusts for number, and they were eating everything up. Could you imagine, you drive up to Walmart, you go inside and all the shelves are empty because some bad guys showed up and stole everything. You say, well, I'll just go over to Douglas. I'll go to that ratty Walmart over there. And we got a nice Walmart, don't we? Count your blessings. Go to that Walmart over at Douglas, and it's all gone over there too. Every Walmart in town. Say, well, all right, I want to lower my standards, and I'm going to go to Target. and it's all gone at Target. There's nothing. That's what was happening. Which, do you remember from our study in the Revelation? See, we're making connections again. The first horse at the first seal was white. Second horse was red. Third horse, black. And what did the rider on the third horse have? He had scales. Scales representing economic hardship, economic difficulty. It makes me wonder too, seeing how relevant the scriptures are. I was reading today about the impact that these storms in the east would have on our economy, and not just our economy, but things like cotton. This hit cotton growers. This hit peanut growers. This hit, hold on to your hearts, this hit pecan growers. How are we going to make it without pecans? And you know you can't, soybeans and peanuts, you can put another crop in next year. Cotton plants, you can put another crop in next year. What are you going to do when you lose your pecan trees? That takes a long time to get pecans back. So it makes me wonder. I'm not making any claims. But when God wants to bring judgment on a nation, this is where he starts. He starts with the economy. And it may well be that this is something God has in mind for us as a nation, to try to wake us up. Difficulty, hardship. My goodness, look at our political situation. And I don't know how people can be so blind to the situation as it is. But what was going on in the day of the judges? God sent a prophet. Let's talk about that prophet. That's the next thing we're looking at here. God sent a prophet. How'd you get that one? Matt's paying attention back there. God sent a prophet amongst the Israelites who recounted their blank, and the word I would put there is history. So let me tell you where we've been, and this is stuff they should have known. He recounted their history of saving them from blank and blank. The first blank would be the country, Egypt. The second blank would be the condition, slavery. That was their history, and that's what God sent his prophet to start telling them. God saved you from Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world. God saved you from slavery, the worst condition you could have in this world. But they still did not blank him. They did not obey. So that's their circumstance. That's the first 10 verses. Let's do a little reading here down through, well, let's just go down through verse 24. So who will read 11 through 18? Anybody want to read that? And you're skimming it to see what kind of names there are in there, I know. 11, all right, Janie has got 11 through 18, and then 19 to 24. Anybody want to pick up on that one? All right, I'll read it. All right, oh, Bob's going to read it. Great.
Came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." And Gideon said to him, "Please, sir, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to have saved? Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian." And the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this night of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you?" I've lost my place. And he said to them, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." And the Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." And he said to him, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that you speak with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay till you return."
Then Gideon went and prepared a young goat and 1 loaf of bread and an ephah of flour. He put the meat in a basket, brought them a pot, and brought them out to him under the oaks and presented them. The angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on the rock, and pour out the broth." And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put out the end of his staff that was in his hand, and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire sprang up from the rock, and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. When Gideon saw that he was the angel of the Lord, he said, "Alas, O Lord God, for now I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." The Lord said to him, "Peace to you, do not fear, you shall not die." Then Gideon built up an altar there to the Lord, and named it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day it is still an oak after the Israelites.
Very good. Thank you. Number 2, the blank of the Lord. The angel. Whether it's Hebrew or Greek, the word for angel means messenger. So this is God's messenger coming to see Gideon. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon as he was beating out wheat. What's involved with beating out wheat? Wheat is a grain. It has a husk in it or on it, around it. And when it gets ripe, inside that husk is a white colored feathery stuff. And that's when Jesus said the fields are white unto harvest, that's because the wheat was ripe and it was bursting open and you could see the whiteness inside. Well, you harvest that wheat and then you hit it with a stick or something to shake the grain of wheat loose from the husk and that white stuff. And then winnowing is when you take a fork that looks like a big rake and you go into a pile of that stuff and you throw it up in the air, and the wheat is heavy enough it falls right back down, but the wind, any breeze, will catch that lightweight chaff or that white fluffy stuff and blow it away. So that's what he was doing. Imagine the other night we were going to make some grilled cheese. And Debbie said, "Is there any bread?" I said, "I think there's most of a loaf in the fridge, and I think there might be another one in the garage." How good do we have it? I didn't have to say, "Well, let me go get a bucket of wheat and beat it out, and then we'll grind that and make some flour." Granted, it would probably be a whole lot better for us, but that's a lot of work. And he was doing this because the Midianites had stolen everything, taken everything, and if they found him, they would take what he had. So he's beating out wheat in a wine press in order to blank it from the Midianites, hide it or save it from the Midianites. The angel called Gideon a blank blank. What did he say about this boy? Valiant warrior. And told him he was to deliver Israel from their enemies, saying, "Have I not blanked you? Have I not sent you?" There's authority. Jesus would say the same to us. Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. Have I not sent you, he could say. Gideon objected, saying that his family was the blank in Manasseh, least in Manasseh, and that he was the blank in his family, youngest. Does that sound familiar? I think Saul had the same situation that what's my family in Benjamin. The angel said he, that is Gideon, would defeat Midian as blank blank because he would be with him as one man. You'll defeat him as one man. What in the world would that mean? If you were Gideon and the angel said that you will defeat him, not you'll be one man going against them, but you'll defeat them as one man. That would be, to me, at that point, a mystery. What does that mean? And yet, what has God ever said that hasn't come true? Nothing. So when you read it, when you see it, when you hear it, know it's going to be right. Number 3, Gideon requested that he be allowed to make an offering, and also that the angel would show him a sign. When Gideon returned with a meal of goat meat, broth, and unleavened bread, the angel touched the food with his staff. The meat and bread was immediately consumed by fire, because it wasn't really a staff, it was a flamethrower. Probably somebody has written that somewhere. And the angel blinked. He vanished. So he touched it with the end of his staff. It was completely burnt up, incinerated, and then the angel is gone. At that place, Gideon built an altar and named it Yahweh Shalom, meaning the blank is blank. The Lord is peace. Yahweh Shalom. What was Gideon's first reaction when the angel vanished? He was afraid. And what did he say? Did you catch that? Or what did it say about Gideon? Something he realized. This is in verse 22. Right. So he didn't know he was the Lord's angel up until this point. But now he knows. I've seen the angel of the Lord. And what does God say to him? Don't be afraid. How many times does God say that in the scriptures to somebody who is afraid of the circumstance they're in, and they don't need to be afraid, but they feel like they need to be afraid, and so God says, don't be afraid. Just like Jesus said to the apostles, fear not, I'm with you. I'm with you to the end of the age. In this world, you're going to have a lot of trouble, but I've overcome this world. That's the constant message of God to us. And so he says that to Gideon. What if when you were, say, 12, you got a letter from God, and that letter had a list of all the difficult situations you were going to face in your life? And it didn't say, here's how we're going to get you through this. It just said, here's everything you're going to face. What would that be like? Yeah, be scary. And yet, he could do that because how many situations have you faced in life that made you afraid, made you dread, kept you up at night, kept you from enjoying the time until whatever you were thinking about had to happen? And how many things has God brought you through? I remember being in school thinking, oh, this dumb test coming up, or this project that's due, and you're not ready. This whatever I have to face as a preteen or a teenager in high school. And all that's over now. And you're signing yearbooks at the end of the school year because, oh, this is such an important event, and you're looking back on it now going, it was high school. Nobody cares now because at the time that was everything. What did I read on Facebook the other day? To everybody who wrote in my yearbook, stay cool. You'll be glad that things have turned out well. Something like that. And I'm not saying high school's not important. I'm just saying that so many of the things we face in life are not the big, hairy monsters we think they are when God is with us. And he brings us through. And you're here tonight, having probably thought something in the past was going to kill you. And here you are. So God's not done with us yet. And God was not done with Gideon. And he looked at himself and he had doubts. And there's good reason for that. And if we look at ourselves, we'll have doubts. But if we look at God, everything will work out. All right, chapter 6, 25 to 40 is where we are now. I tell you what, let's do. Instead of reading that for the sake of time, you just kind of skim it as we go. These sections are short, and we'll see if we can fill in the blanks and then talk about what's there. Number 4, now God instructs Gideon to blank the altar of Baal belonging to his father. Pull it down. How's he supposed to pull it down? Get a couple of bulls. So it must be a pretty good size altar. If you're going to need a couple of bulls, get a couple of bulls, pull down the altar. And blank down the Asherah beside it. Cut down. So the Asherah is made out of wood. It was a god. It was a representation of a god. And there were various kinds. Then he was to build a blank altar over the old one. A new one. Build a new altar over the old one and offer a blank on it. You take one of those bulls and offer that bull on it using the Asherah to make the fire. So Gideon, I know the Midianites are out there, but here's what I want you to do first. Get a couple of bulls. You know that place of worship for Baal that your dad has? I want you to go there and pull that altar down. You know that Asherah he's got standing next to it? I want you to cut that down. And then I want you to take one of those bulls, and after you've built a brand new altar over top of the old one, sacrifice one of those bulls, and to burn that bull up as a sacrifice, use that Asherah, cut it into firewood, and burn that up. So, by the way, who did this belong to? It was his dad's. What was his dad doing with an altar to Baal and an Asherah? Say what? Same as everybody else. This was the problem. And I'm looking at this thinking, all right, God's going to deliver these people? However, we're not done with the story yet. Let's go to number 5. When the men of the city discovered this, what Gideon had done to the altar and the Asherah and all that, they wanted to blank Gideon. They wanted to kill him, bring him out that we might put him to death. But his father blanked him. He defended him. Remember, all that stuff was his dad's. And now the city guys are coming to the dad's house. Hey, we want to bring your boy out here. We're going to kill him for tearing down this altar to Baal. And he didn't say, at least it's not in the text, he didn't say, well, that was my altar, so I'll take care of it. He said what? Let Baal contend with him. He defended him, saying that they should let Baal contend with him. This is why he named his son Jerubbaal, which means he who contends with Baal. So what's going on spiritually in Israel? Here's Gideon. His father is an active idol worshiper. And probably this place was not simply his, because who got upset when it was destroyed? The men of the city. This apparently was a place for public worship of Baal and the Asherah. And they see that it's been destroyed, and they come to say, whoever's done this is going to pay with their life. And the guy who owns it, Gideon's dad, says, well, let Baal contend. But this was the spiritual state of Israel. And these are the people that God is raising Gideon up to save, to put off their oppressors. Number 6, the enemies of Israel camped in the valley of Jezreel. And then the blank of the Lord came upon Gideon. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew the blank trumpet and assembled Israel for war. I did not bring the shofar in tonight. I subjected you to that a week or two back, so won't do that again for a while. But it's fun to blow. You want to blow it, come see me. I'll let you blow my shofar. Number 7, apparently needing some reassurance, Gideon asked God to show him a sign by using a blank of wool, a fleece of wool. On the first night, the blank was to be only on the fleece. The dew was to be only on the fleece and not on the ground. Reversing the order the second night, Gideon asked that the fleece be dry and the ground around it be wet. This took place on the blank blank. Where was this done? Said in the text it was on the threshing floor, so a place that had been cleared out. Without any blank, God complied with Gideon's request. What might you put in that blank? I would put reprimand. What else what did you say? I'm sure it's an excellent answer, but I can't hear it. Hesitation. Hesitation. Very good. You ever think you're trying God's patience? Gideon, out of the blue, the angel comes to him. And what's the first thing the angel says to him? Greetings, valiant warrior. And what's Gideon doing at the time? He's beating out wheat in hiding. And he's called a valiant warrior. And then what does he say about himself and his family? We're the least family in Manasseh. And I'm the least in that least family. Got to swallow this cough drop. Who does he sound like? Besides Saul, we talked about Saul. Who else does he sound like? Sounds like David. Remember, Samuel comes into Jesse's house. Here's all these boys, big, tall Eliab, the firstborn. What's he say? Samuel says in his heart, that's got to be him right there. And the Lord says, nah, that ain't him. So he keeps asking about all the boys, and it's none of the boys that are there. So Samuel asks what? You got any other boys? And essentially, Jesse said, well, there's that runt David out watching the sheep. He said, we'll send for him. Brings David in, and God says, that's the one. Pour that oil on his head. That's the man after my own heart. He's going to be the next king. It's not how we see things, it's how God sees things. And then there was Moses. God calls Moses in a burning bush. Says, I want you to go down to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses says, I got about 4 reasons here, Lord. Well, actually, I got 3 reasons, and the last one is, well, just send somebody else, whoever you want to send, but not me. Now, the 4th time in that situation, God did get a little angry. See, here's the thing. God knows our hearts. He knows our minds. He knows our intent. He knows what we want and how we think of him. He knows our level of faith. He knows what we're capable of. And he knows what to expect of us all the time. And he's just like a parent, because in actuality, he's the ultimate parent. He knows to expect more from us because we can always do better. And without those kinds of expectations, we don't do as well. If you think nobody expects anything from you, then you are inclined or disinclined to put out much effort to do well. But if somebody does expect something from you, well, if you regard them, then you'll try to comply with that expectation. And God was expecting something of Gideon, but he was doing it very patiently. Gideon was afraid. He said, well, hey, let me make an offering, but I'm asking you to show me a sign. And so he does what? He goes and he gets a goat, and he prepares the goat, makes the broth. How long does it take to make broth from a goat? Ask Debbie sometimes about her goaty experience in Haiti when we were down there. She's got a good story for you. What else did he make? Goat meat, broth, unleavened bread. Wait a minute, what were the circumstances in Israel? All the food was being swiped and stolen, and Gideon thinks enough of this circumstance, this situation, that he's going to sacrifice a goat to provide a meal for this guy. He doesn't even know who he is. He just knows he's coming to say, you're a valiant warrior. You're going to deliver Israel. Have I not sent you? So he puts enough stock in this messenger to do these things, and he brings the offering before him, and that's when he finally realizes the import of the messenger and his message because of what the angel does. He puts the end of his staff to the offering, and it burns up, and he vanishes out of Gideon's sight. So now he knows, but he doesn't really know. What's the next thing he's going to do? Lord, I got this fleece here, and here's what I want to do with this fleece. First night, make it wet. But he doesn't say first night. He just says, I'm going to put it out here. If you'll make it wet and the ground dry, we'll be good. And that's what God does. And that's not quite enough. It's like, well, this could have happened, that could have. What if the next night, and God doesn't say, I'm not doing that again. God says, all right, yeah, put your fleece out there. I read this and I think about how patient God is with you and me all the time. And how many times he's overlooked and he's been long-suffering. You ever think about that term, that phrase, long-suffering? Suffering, putting up with, tolerating. And that's the way God has been with me all of my life, and he's still being that way, and he's that way with us. And that's what we're seeing in Gideon. I don't wonder why this is in the book. I think this is the reason we're supposed to read this and make some application. Bob?
Abraham was talking to the Lord about Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. Now, do you remember that? Genesis 18 and 19, the Lord appears to Abraham. By the way, he didn't know he was the Lord then either. Just saw three men. And he runs and has Sarah, hey, fix up some food for these guys. And she prepares a fine meal. And then God reveals, I'm going to destroy Sodom. And Abraham goes, well, would you destroy it if there were, how many people did he start with? 50. Would you destroy it if there were 50 righteous people? Now, here's the thing. You read this in the text. How many people does God know that are in Sodom that are righteous? He knows. He already knows. And he doesn't stop Abraham. Like, no, Abraham, knock it off. You're going to work me down to, is it 5 or 10? I forget now. You have to go back and look at there's your research question for next week. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, I already know how many righteous people there are, and it's not going to happen. He lets Abraham continue to come back, and well, what if there's only 40? And he finally works him down to the last number, and God says, you know what? If I find that many righteous people there, I won't destroy it. Well, he already knew. He already knew. And he never stopped Abraham. Why do you think the Holy Spirit said, put that in the text? How does God want us to be towards others, even when they don't deserve it? Long-suffering, compassionate, kind, to have a sense of sympathy, if not empathy, sympathy at least, and wanting the best for other people. Because Abraham could have said, you know what, my stinking nephew's down there. He saw the green stuff and he took off for it and left me over here with this desert. But he didn't do that either. He could have said, I know what those people are like. It's a good thing you're coming to destroy them. Yeah, just get my nephew out of there if you don't mind. His wife is kind of well, whatever, but she's a little salty. But whatever. But he's arguing for them on their behalf. He's going before God as an advocate for people who don't deserve to be advocated for. At least if they did, God wouldn't be destroying them, because he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah in a way he's never destroyed any other place. And yet he shows us his friend, Abraham. That's what Abraham is called, a friend of God. He shows us his friend standing in for those people. And what did Jesus do on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You, this day you're going to be with me in paradise. Constantly ready to forgive. However, in this case, what's going to happen with the Midianites? What's going to happen with the Amalekites? What's going to happen with the sons of the east? They're going down. They're going down. Remember what God told Abraham, though. He said, I'm going to bring your offspring into this country, but it's not going to be for hundreds of years. Because the what? The iniquity The Amorites is not yet full. And the Amorites, that was just one people that were stand-ins for all the Canaanites. The iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Meaning when it is full, I'm bringing your children in here. And the time frame was perfect. And when God sent them in there, what did he say to do with everybody in the land? He said, wipe them out, every man, woman, and child. That's what the order was. Did they do that? They didn't do that. And God did not say, now I'm going to wipe you out because you didn't do it. As a matter of fact, he sends his prophet. Before he sends the angel, he sends a prophet. And what's the message of the prophet? God saved you from Egypt. He saved you from slavery. He provided for you all through the desert. He didn't go through all the details, but they should have put all that together. And he says, but you have not obeyed him. That was the message of the prophet. That's always the message of the prophets. Anytime you see a prophet, it's almost always, in every situation, because people are not doing what they're supposed to do. So God sends somebody to be his mouthpiece to give them the truth. And it's not always to change people, because sometimes God knows people aren't going to change. Just like he told Ezekiel, I'm sending you up against a people whose foreheads are hard as flint. You read that in the first chapter of Ezekiel, it's like, what? Why are you doing that? And he's talking about people who were already in exile. They've already been driven off of Babylonian captivity. We are hard-headed. You don't have to be Jewish to be hard-headed. Is that the first bell? All right. So we got just a minute, but I won't keep you much longer. I just want you to think about all of these things and see how relevant what's happening in Judges is for us today. You look at history, and how long ago did this take place? You remember from our first night? We're looking at about 3,400 years. So it's been a while, and it's still relevant. Anybody got anything? Any observations? Any comments or questions? Everybody says, shh. Let go. All right. Dismissed. Love you guys.